Two. You still? How's everyone doing? This is our third day this week that we're doing live sessions. For today, we're going to paint one of my favorite painters, and I think he was responsible for me, I guess, reacquiring faith in contemporary painting, in the sense that Rauch was doing just terribly exciting painting, at least in my eyes, that in my imagination, you know, in terms of the imagery that I had collected in my brain, it was painting that was understood as, you know, valid, strong, contemporary painting, but also had this will to produce these narratives, or these pseudo-narratives, that I felt were akin to my illustration world. So for me, it was the perfect meetup of, you know, the idea of being a contemporary painter that was slowly kind of deteriorating in my mind, I guess, together with this, you know, renaissance of the illustration as image, in the sense that a painting could communicate something, could have a narrative, and didn't have to, you know, speak of, you know, these super abstract terms. So Rauch, for me, was somebody that that really did that for my own painting. I could never really adapt what he did into my own painting. I don't think that the value that I see in his work, which is tremendous, really shows in my work. I think that my work ends up being about completely different things, but it doesn't matter. You know, what matters is that that I recognize that, you know, these sort of things could be painted and people could pay attention. And at that moment in my life, you know, I was younger, because when I saw Rauch's work, it was probably, I don't know, 18 years ago maybe. Big galleries were paying attention, and big museums were paying attention. So a lot of that Leipzig school was almost like single-handedly responsible for rekindling that flame that was contemporary painting. So we're going to paint him today. I'm going to try to be kind of playful with the colors that I use. I'm going to see if I use a little bit of medium today, and I'll just I'll explain in a little bit why. I'm not going to do anything, you know, particularly strange with my my liquid, but I feel that it can help me do something that I want to do initially. So let's see if that works. And I didn't know what I wanted to paint, so I had laid down my sort of traditional palette, which is titanium white, yellow ochre, cat red, alizarin crimson, and ultramarine blue. It's a very boring palette. I mean, the only moment where you have some sort of possibilities in terms of hues is in the red hue, where you have like a red orange, which is cat red, and you have a red violet, which is alizarin crimson. And I love those two kind of ends of the red hue spectrum. I really like having those in my traditional palette. For yellow, I had my yellow ochre, and for a blue, I always choose like my workhorse blue, which is ultramarine. A lot of people find ultramarine super boring. It's a blue violet. I actually really like it. But when thinking about Rauch, I mean, I could have painted him with this, and that's totally fine. You can paint anything with these colors, and it's fine. But I thought, no, let's try to acknowledge some of the, I don't know in my mind how I envision the society that he paints, but it's like post-industrialism, post also some sort of nuclear bomb going off, or I don't know, because obviously, and he has like these half, you know, human, half beast characters in his paintings. So you know that something was off. Like a lot of those people were drinking from the Springfield rivers, you know, the contaminated rivers of Springfield. So I think that color, the colors that he uses, lend themselves perfectly to those you know, those societies that he's portraying. So when I thought about that, I was like, yeah, I could use some of that and maybe a magenta, but I ran out of my quinacridone magenta. So I think I'm going to use this, and maybe I'll see if the other colors can help out in a, you know, in some way. Let's see what we paint. I'm totally not certain about how this painting is going to go, but we'll see. The reason I turned the saturation down in the photograph is that I don't want to be almost like burdened by the information of the color photo. I just want to make things up as I go along in terms of how I define the colors that I want in the image. And I'm not going to follow some of the values, particularly the darker value that's at the bottom, because we did that yesterday, and I think it's kind of interesting if we do something entirely different. So let me grab a brush. I don't know where it is. Right here. So I'm going to start with like a big. So this is not my usual yellow. This is actually like a cadmium yellow. That's why it's like, you know, more towards the orange. I usually have a yellow green, something that's a little bit closer to a greener hue. I'm not going to add green. I think the yellow, you know, this yellow is going to be fine by itself. And I just want that big yellow mass in the bottom. And the reason I'm using a little bit of medium is that I want to lay it down thinly so that some of the brightness, quote unquote, from the paper, because moleskin paper is actually has like a tone to it, like a creamy yellower tone to it. So we can't really call it like super bright, but we're gonna have some of that lighter tone just shine through the color. That's where color is at its brightest, when it's more transparent than when you have something like, you know, like traditional glue gesso underneath that can be incredibly bright and beautiful. If you let that color shine through, that's going to make the most vibrant color you can paint. That's why a lot of those early Renaissance paintings were painted with on top of glue gesso on a wooden panel that was primed with glue gesso, with traditional gesso, and the colors just have a vibrancy that you very seldom see in for example, Baroque painting. And part of the reason was that a lot of the brightness of the surface, of the primed wood, would just shine through the color, would filter through the layers of kind of semi-transparent color, and would give you that really nice vibrancy. So I'm going to start with that. For the portrait, if I had my magenta, I would go straight for my magenta, but I'm going to go for this, maybe a little bit of that. And again, we have to be kind of ridiculous because it's Neo Rauch, and he just merits, I feel, just taking a chance. And I'm going to try to be, I mean, yesterday I did a bit of distortion. I'm going to try to make it a little more evident today, but I'm still searching for the shape that I want. I don't know if I want that head to be bigger. Maybe I do. Maybe that big yellow mass. Yeah, let's bring it kind of lower. Because it's so transparent and because the surface is so absorbent, that initial layer, it's not going to really affect my color. So.
Preguntan que si puedes decir un poquito en español. Que no
Bueno. Entonces para la pintura de hoy voy a pintar a Neo Rauch, que Neo Rauch es un pintor contemporáneo alemán. Fue muy famoso y todavía es súper famoso. Él era parte o es parte pues de lo que se conoce como la escuela de Leipzig, que fueron una serie de pintores así súper chéveres que salieron como de una generación de pintores que estudiaron y vivieron en Leipzig. Entonces decía que lo voy a pintar a él porque de alguna manera como que revivió como la esperanza que yo quería ver en pintura contemporánea, porque pues uno, pues desafortunadamente pintura contemporánea, no digo como pre-escuela de Leipzig, pero la pintura contemporánea era súper difícil de definir, o sea, había nombres enormes como Bacon o Freud o Auerbach o Uglo, o sea, nombres así que eran súper conocidos al final, digamos, del siglo XX, pero después entró como en una, no sé, como en un limbo ahí un poco extraño y, y era difícil como tratar de visualizar, particularmente la pintura que era medianamente figurativa, era difícil visualizar para dónde se dirigía. Entonces, para mí fue súper chévere cuando yo tenía, no sé, 20 y picho de años, 30 años, sí, no, menos, 20 y picho de años, cuando vi la pintura de Rauch y la pintura de este otro poco de pintores de Leipzig. Entonces, pues pensé que para hoy era como chévere darnos la opción de pintarlo a él y reflexionar un poquitico sobre eso. Y para la paleta estaba diciendo que iba a comenzar con mi paleta como semi tradicional, que es blanco y titanio, amarillo ocre, rojo cadmio, rojo alizarín y azul ultramarino, que es una paleta medio aburrida, o sea, estaba diciendo que el rango que tengo realmente es más amplio en solo el matiz rojo, porque tengo un rojo naranja, que es el rojo cadmio, y un rojo violeta, que es el rojo alizarín, pero de resto pues mi matiz amarillo es amarillo ocre, mi matiz azul es ultramarino, entonces son opciones aburridas, pero pues aburridas, digamos que no hay nada como emocionante cuando uno ve esos pigmentos, pero a mí obviamente me fascinan. Pero entonces pensando en Rauch dije no, voy a tratar de pintarlo como, con colores que sean un poco más fieles a lo que él es, digamos que a lo que él hace con su trabajo. Si no conocen la obra de él, búsquenla. El nombre de él es Neo, Rauch.
Ya lo puse en el
Ay,
chat.
gracias, Linda. Y pues si no lo conocían, busquen lo que es fascinante. Entonces vamos a usar como esos colores. Vamos a ver cómo nos va. Y voy a tratar de distorsionar un poquito más hoy para ver cómo nos va.
Do you have a piece of work that you consider your masterwork for the time being?
Oh, no. I mean, recently I painted that Andre the Giant little painting that I loved. I really made an effort to say how much I enjoyed painting that painting, and I even asked for kind of like permission from everyone to say I'm gonna, this painting is not gonna be worth the same as every other painting that we've painted for the project. I want to treat it somewhat differently, which was very strange for me because throughout the project I've been trying to teach myself to be to understand that every single painting that I do is exactly the same. And I think that video, if you haven't watched it, you could watch that Andre the Giant video, but I think in that video I tried to explain how weird it was for me to feel those things with that painting, because ultimately, like, I always thought that the painting that I would have felt something like that with should have been a painting of Danny or a painting of Samu or Fer or my mother. And there are a bunch of paintings of them that I really think were nice. But for some reason, it happened with Andre the Giant. I don't have a particular, connection, like super deep connection. I mean, I tell the story of why Andre the Giant is part of like my memory, but it's not as if I was this enormous fan of wrestling or a fan of Andre the Giant and just painting him was that special. No, it was, I don't know, it was just strange to understand that those sort of things happened, and I don't know, I guess I acknowledged it, in a sense, and I said, wow, this, I really connect with this painting. I have no idea why, to be really honest. I don't know if I could verbalize why. It's just that painting this small painting of this massive human being. I don't know, it just felt, you know what it is? Maybe you guys probably have this feeling that whenever you try to paint something, and I mean, more often than not, we're just incapable of painting whatever we're trying to paint. But, you know, sometimes, like, just, you know, the sky just shines down upon us, and we can paint what we wanted to paint, like almost like exactly what we wanted to paint. And I feel that that's what happened with that painting, that I felt that I really painted the image that I wanted to paint. And that was very, very strange. It was very peculiar. It's a really crazy feeling when you realize, wow, that is what I wanted to do. That is what I wanted to paint. So I'm about to do something that's gonna give hopefully that's gonna not mess everything up, but it's gonna start to give the character that I want to this painting, which is, I want this to be like a you know, very cool red face, and I want the accents or the shadows, and then, you know, the darker accents, I want them to be this also kind of cool green. So for this I'm using Viridian, which I rarely use, and we'll see how that goes. Maybe it doesn't work. It doesn't matter. Like, we'll give it a shot. I mean, it's exciting to try and see if we can make this work. So.
Do you like Hockney? Those colors remind me.
Oh, very, yeah. That's a very, very Hockney color. Yeah, both Danny and I really like him. Really like him. I was super fortunate to go to the Tate when they had I was teaching a workshop at the time, and I was able to visit the Tate when they had a retrospective over there of his work, and it just blew my mind. Just absolutely blew my mind. It was incredible. For now, these are just, I guess, drawing marks. I don't know if I want them, at this moment, I don't know if I want them to be sort of contours, or I don't know if I want them to be also blended into the sort of, you know, magenta, red, violet color. I'm not, right now I'm very unsure of those things. So we'll make it up as we go along. So.
¿Nunca le pasó que se aburrió de la pintura y probó otras disciplinas?
No, la verdad, o sea, voy a ser súper honesto. No, con la pintura nunca me he aburrido. O sea, no quiere decir que uno no se pueda aburrir de la manera, de la expresión que uno esté utilizando para, pues, decir eso que uno quiere decir. Pero no, sabe que no, nunca me pasó. Y también es que siento que como que me esforcé tanto y esto no estoy diciendo como no, es que, o sea, como para tratar de autoadularme por mi esfuerzo. No, lo que pasa es que pintar, o sea, generar una relación con la pintura seguramente necesita de tiempo y de un montón de esfuerzo. Entonces, yo también siento que me esforcé tanto por digamos, tener un vínculo fuerte con la pintura, que siento que, pues, ese esfuerzo no es que no es que sea en vano si uno escoge otra cosa, pero no quisiera, no es ni siquiera traicionarlo, sino, no sé, como que no quisiera salir de ahí, porque siento que le aposté a eso y ahí es donde yo me siento súper cómodo. Entonces, y no cómodo como que no me cuestiono, sino cómodo con que, pues, estoy forjando, o sea, sigo forjando esa relación y esa conexión con mis materiales.
Maisha asks,
Hey Maisha, how are you?
why do you paint with a sketchbook all the time?
Because, and this is, Maisha, this is the paper that you and your dad sent us. And I love that paper. I really love that paper. So this is partly your fault. You're to blame for this. But I don't know, Maisha. I think it's the the absorbency of the paper. I think it gives me almost exactly what I want from painting, from, you know, the feel that I want out of painting. So I found it, and it's been really hard to try and give that up. So plus it's cheaper. It's cheaper than buying a very expensive piece of linen. So yeah.
It's common for drawing to serve as the first step of painting. And you've elevated the status of drawing in the past. But could you point some under-recognized strengths of drawing?
Oof, that's a tough. I think I'm understanding your question, but I think drawing I think I've always said that it's the most efficient at giving you a sense of what you're doing, at showing you kind of like giving you the ability to measure what you're doing. I think that nothing comes even close to drawing in that sense. And what I mean by that is that in a painting, like for example, right now I'm just laying a bunch of color, and I've laid down also some marks that you could kind of refer to them as drawing marks if you wanted to, but if you were just strictly drawing, just paying attention to design and just mark making, the feedback that you can get from those marks is so quickly, and it's so efficient and so pure. It's almost like unencumbered by anything. You know, it's just, you're gonna get this perfect bit of feedback that has to do with what is it that you wanted to do, and you know, you make your choices, and then this drawing, these marks, these decisions, because what they are is just materialized decision making, which is incredible. These decisions are going to tell you are on your way or you're lost, you know, or you've lost your way, and that to me is just so ridiculously powerful. Like, that is incredibly strong to me. So I always found that just incredibly attractive. I'm still trying to figure out, like, I did those drawing marks just to know what I'm hopefully planning on doing in terms of my color relationships and in terms of my form, but I'm still not super convinced about what I want the role of this green to be. I know I already bet on it, so I now have to make it work, but I'm a little unsure of what I want this to be. I like that I flattened the head out. This one just jutted out of that direction, and I think we can make like a big ear onto this side, and that can be fun. And we can actually, if this is super flat, and by flat I mean that there's almost no space between the socket, the eye socket. We're gonna have it like this tiny little cheekbone, and then we can push the ear also out this way. I think that can be super fun.
Hola, Nicolás.
Hola. Hola.
Sí.
Mi español, ¿sabes?
¿En qué piensas al momento de traducir lo que quieres representar con tus colores? ¿Y crees que al momento de enseñar es mejor dar los descubrimientos propios de la pintura o dejar que cada alumno encuentre esas cosas experimentando? Son dos preguntas distintas.
Sí. ¿En qué pienso? No, creo que lo resumí un poco bien, o traté de resumirlo bien al comienzo. Qué pena si no fui como tan claro, pero parte de la decisión de el haber como introducido estos colores a la paleta, una paleta que pensé que era la que iba a trabajar, es por el mismo Rauch. O sea, en la misma medida que ayer nos condicionamos en el buen sentido, pienso yo, un poco por la pintura de Helen Schierfbeck. Hoy hacemos lo mismo. Hoy estoy como tratando de como reflexionar un poco sobre lo que significa la pintura de Rauch y lo que me significó en esos momentos en que la vi. Entonces, parte de la elección de la paleta es esa, y después, pues, digamos que dentro de esas relaciones de color, cuáles son esas, digamos, cuáles son esos juegos que voy a tratar de hacer en la pintura, o sea, gran masa de amarillo contra un rosa frío, contra un verde. Esas ya pues son decisiones como que tomé al inicio y dije, bueno, le voy a apostar a esto e hice esa apuesta y ahorita lo que estoy diciendo es que estoy tratando de ver si realmente van a funcionar o no, porque no sé qué rol todavía estoy tratando de reconocer qué rol está jugando este verde. Pensé que iba a ser como un tipo de color que me ayudaba como al dibujo, eh, pero, pero también está ayudando como a la forma, entonces no sé, se me está como, no sé, está ocupando varios digamos, roles, o está jugando varios roles. Vamos a ver si logro tratar de balancear todos esos. Y acerca de los alumnos, no, yo creo que nunca, no sé, yo nunca me impuse, no, o quisiera creer que nunca me impuse ante mis estudiantes. Obviamente yo tenía que proponer el ejercicio y tenía que diseñar lo que iba a pasar en las clases de pintura y de dibujo, pero yo creo que nunca le decía a mis estudiantes, estos son mis hallazgos, entonces estas son las pistas que ustedes tienen que usar. No, yo creo que si por algo se conocía como la clase que yo hacía o digamos los esfuerzos que yo promovía, era porque la gente terminaba haciendo cosas súper distintas digamos, mi propia pintura. Eh, y, y creo que eso fue cierto, pues no sé si fue cierto durante toda la carrera, o sea, yo creo que al principio cuando empecé a enseñar yo no sabía lo que significaba ser un buen profe de pintura y pues uno termina recayendo en tratar de enseñar las cosas que uno sabe. Pero yo he contado esa historia de que la directora de la carrera en algún punto me dijo, me llamó para hablar con ella y me dijo, oiga, yo lo invité a dar pintura para que usted enseñara pintura, no para que usted enseñara a pintar como usted pinta. Y eso fue súper chévere para mí porque como que me hizo prender, no alarmas, sino como que en la cabeza entendí que mi función no era simplemente decirle a las personas, oigan, yo hago así las cosas, eh, entonces esa información es la que les estoy pasando a ustedes.
How does paint... Ah, no, este no. Perdón, es que ese ya lo has respondido.
Pensé que has dicho, no, esta no está chévere.
No, es que ya lo has respondido varias veces lo de trabajar en papel sin imprimar, que lo preguntaron
Sí.
en inglés, pero entonces por eso. Do you more naturally think about images in lines like in drawing or in shapes like a painter?
I don't know. I think both. I think both. I think we were talking with Danny the other day that it's not like an either or thing, and it's not to say that what I can do with one can replace what can be done with the other. Sometimes when I don't understand something, maybe in terms of masses, I maybe can understand it with line work. I mean, but then you're going, I'm not saying you, but then we're trying to define drawing as line work, which is not true either. So I don't know. I think I go back and forth with those things. I just think that I honestly, the easiest way for me to feel about this is to say that drawing is something that's omnipresent. I feel that even if I wanted to understand it as something that can be kind of like defined and put in a compartment and say, okay, this is drawing. I also realized, no, drawing is something that is part of architecture, it's part of sculpture, it's part of painting, it's part of everything, really. So it's far bigger, like its definition, it's far broader than the mere act of mark making, I feel. So I don't know. I feel drawing it would be very hard to be understood as a single manner of expression, or like a simple manner of expression. I hope that makes sense, maybe.
Ruprecht es de la generación de Neo.
No, porque Rauch tiene como 60 y algo años y Ruprecht creo que es como unos años mayor que yo. No, ni mires, o sea, si tiene unos años más que yo, me pongo a llorar y ya. No, Ruprecht debe tener como 46 años, 47 años, de pronto.
Del 74, 47.
Fuck.
Sí.
Sí, terrible. Horroroso. Yo tengo 44, pero, uy, no, qué dolor. Sí, no, entonces son de generaciones distintas. em, pero Ruprecht también está vinculado, yo no sé si sigue vinculado a la universidad, pero él estaba enseñando como, eh, creo que sí, incluso, ahora es como el director de la parte de pintura, si no estoy mal, de pronto me estoy equivocando, pero, pero antes daba como anatomía, por eso es que eh, muchas veces sale como con un poco tonón de huesos como de ballena y de ballenas y de animales ahí, porque son una colección, está como al lado de una colección ahí súper chévere que tiene la universidad.
Es que esa pregunta tenía otra mitad, pero
Sí, sí, sí.
que decía qué métodos de enseñanza tuvieron, ¿sabes? De
Ellos,
Ruprecht
uy,
y
no
de...
sé, no sé. No, bueno, Ruprecht aprendió en California. Él en la entrevista, yo no sabía eso, en la entrevista que le hice, él contaba que él se fue a Estados Unidos a pintar, pero él decía que él era muy solo también, porque la pintura de él, muchas veces los profesores como que ya no sabían qué decirle y lo dejaban hacer sus cosas solo. Entonces también se sentía un poco, pues no estoy como interpretando cosas, creo que estoy parafraseando cosas que él dijo durante la entrevista, pero, pero pues que en ese sentido él hizo su carrera casi que pues como solo, o sea, él obviamente pues tuvo sus profes y todo, pero hizo su carrera más o menos solo. Y él hizo como una carrera más cercana, digamos, a lo que sería la ilustración, a lo que sería ilustración, que a lo que sería, digamos, una pintura, es que a mí como nominar las cosas me da rabia, pero a lo que sería como una pintura bellas artes, digamos, no sé, artes plásticas.
I know you started studying illustration before moving to fine arts. Can you talk about the benefits and negatives of moving from illustration to painting?
But I don't know if I've moved, I mean, moved in the sense that I started showing in galleries, but that's not really exclusive to fine arts per se, because you could be an illustrator and there's plenty of museums and galleries that show illustrators' work. So, gallery work doesn't mean that you're not doing, or that the difference lies there. I think the difference is just intent. The obvious difference between a painting that you do for yourself and a painting that somebody else has a say in it because perhaps there's an art director or perhaps you have to answer to a text that's being written. I think that is probably the biggest difference, but it's also weird because there's a ton of paintings that are done historically that we understand as fine art paintings that have been constructed from text, be it the Bible or poetry or a ton of literature. There's a ton of paintings. I mean, Edwin Austin Abbey did a ton of Shakespeare paintings. So, I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm really terrible when answering these sort of questions because to me there's no difference. Like, I hope this doesn't sound like a cop-out, but to me there's just image making and intent can be different, and yes, intent can actually take you to different places, or there are different responsibilities that we have when resolving the image when the intent is different. But that's about it for me. But an illustration for me, or what we understand as an image that served as an illustration for something, can be equally as powerful as a painting. To me, there's in that sense, there's absolutely no difference between the two of them. So I don't know. I don't think if anything, I think I earned a lot of stuff going from one to the other, because now I saw that I could, grow from and learn from images that were illustrations, and I could do the same thing with images that could be considered, part of I don't know, of painting history. But again, in my mind, I think there's absolutely no difference. I know that a lot of people feel differently about this. I'm totally fine with that, but it's just that I don't waste a moment of my breath or my time trying to argue if something is an illustration or if something is a painting, as if there was, because usually that conversation is kind of lopsided, and it refers to illustration as something pejorative. I'm not saying that that's what you were saying, but that's usually what the conversation devolves into. So, no, for me, exactly the same. They're exactly the same. Again, intent is different. Yes, for sure. The what the painting is aiming to say or do can be different. But aside from that, there's nothing really that separates them. I mean, that's a pretty big thing though, but.
I know you've talked about that a lot in the past, but they're asking about the unprimed paper, like
Okay.
how can you paint on an unprimed paper?
Well, the how is not the tough part, to be honest. I mean, it's although in the workshop in Rome that I did recently, I never ask people to work on unprimed surfaces. I'm never like, no, you have to work on a raw surface. I always tell people that's how I work, and people have, because they have a sense of curiosity, they want to give it a shot. And some people hated it. Some people really, really hated it when they were giving it a shot. And it was really funny. They were like, okay, I can't do this. Because it really, I don't know, I guess it's like everything. It just takes a little bit to get used to how painting is going to behave on a highly, highly absorbent surface. But aside from that, there's no real mystery to it. The only thing is like you have to be a little more physical with your paint. Paint can't just be moved around, so I find myself having to use a lot of paint. So way more paint than I used to use, I guess. And that's about it. Technically, that's about it. It also does give you access to a ton of things that you can't really do in a more traditional surface, particularly if you're painting alla prima, because these brush marks, for example, that you would think would never dry, and I mean they don't really dry, but they kind of set. Paper does absorb a lot of the oil that's in that paint, so it's really amazing how after a small amount of time, I mean short amount of time in terms of painting time, but after a couple of, maybe an hour and a half or 2 hours, you can actually start to paint on top of that brush, on top of these brush strokes, and not disturb them so much. That can actually be done, which is really fascinating to me. I actually find that super, super cool. So a ton of things can be gained. It's like everything, I guess. Things are gained and things are sacrificed. And one of the things that people, I guess, object to the most when they realize that I'm painting on unprimed and on an unprimed surface is the fact that this painting is probably going to be a little less stable than a traditionally primed surface, than if it were painted on a traditionally primed surface. But I always tell people that's a sacrifice that I'm super aware of. Like I know that is something that's happening to my painting, but the things that I'm gaining are so valuable to me that I think they just heavily outweigh the you know, the risk that the painting may be under. So yeah, I made that decision. I didn't make it hastily. I really thought about it. I've painted paintings on traditionally primed surfaces for many, many, many years, and I've always been respectful of technique. So I thought about it. I really, you know, I really spent time just reflecting upon if it was just like a caprice, you know, if I was just painting on this just because, or if it really meant something to me. But I realized after a while that there were a lot of really cool things happening, you know, to my painting that I had been searching for the longest time, that were possible because I was working on an unprimed surface. So I decided to keep going. But if you examine the videos that we did for the channel, we painted on paper, but it was primed paper originally. I think that most of our first, you know, most of the early part of this project was moleskin paper, or just like a watercolor paper that was primed with a acrylic, with an acrylic, a transparent acrylic binder. And eventually I had spare linen, like scraps of linen, not even scraps, it was like a tube. I actually had like some linen lying around, and I used it until that was gone. And then I thought, okay, I can use just paper. And I remember the paintings where I said I'm just gonna use paper. I still remember them like super, super clearly. And they were actually, I was looking at the folder of the paintings where we're keeping all the images from this project. They were right after we had gone through all the pieces of linen that I had, and I was like, I don't know, I'm just gonna use paper. And I don't know if Danny remembers, I think that that's also the point where I ran out of my binder, because because we couldn't find it here. Yeah, they stopped selling it here. So I was like, what do I do? What do I do? I mean, you could put gesso on a piece of paper. That's totally fine. But I became super nervous. I was like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. And I said, well, I could work on a piece of paper. I mean, I always had Olga Oznanska in my brain just telling me, you know, she worked on a raw piece of cardboard, on like this 19th century, you know, raw piece of cardboard. And Toulouse-Lautrec, he painted on raw piece of cardboard also. So it's not as if I just said, yeah, I'm just gonna do this because there's, you know, nothing in history, you know, this is the first time in history that a painting is gonna be painted on a raw surface. No, even like the 20th century is flooded with examples of painters doing paintings on top of raw surfaces. So probably Bacon, or Leon Golub being like famous, very famous for it. Probably Bacon being the most famous for doing that. So yeah, it was a choice. It was really a choice, and I hope that I took I made the decision for the right reasons. You know, that's the only thing I can hope for. But deep down, I feel that I did. Deep down, I feel that I'm just being honest with my own painting. So hopefully the benefits of working, well, not the benefits, but hopefully the qualities that the painting can have are exhibited in my own paintings, and it makes sense why I wanted to do that. Hopefully.
I want to ask you, are there any aspects of JPL? Supongo que es Juan Pablo, Jean Paul Leon,
Jean Paul Leon. Yeah.
Jean Paul Leon work that you understand as painting? How do you understand the limit between drawing and painting?
I don't know. His brother, I think, painted more. I'm not. I know that he did, and I know that my friend Dan Zolkas, who was close to both of them, because they actually both studied at our university, at our art school at SVA, I think that that his brother was more of the painter. I mean, I would have done the same thing if my brother was as insanely good a draftsperson as John Paul was. I would have been like, oh yeah, you stick to that. I'll take painting. Don't worry. But I don't know. I you know, you could argue that there are painterly drawings or you know or drawings that are more of a linear quality, that have more of a linear, you know, character, I guess. But I really I don't want to be dismissive with what you're asking. First of all, I want to try to be super respectful with what you're asking. But it's just that I don't really care. I don't care if a drawing is more of a painted drawing or if it's more of a or if a painting is more of a drawn painting. That to me is like who cares? Like I don't know. Those are the sort of arguments that I would have as, you know, they sound like the sort of arguments that you would have as a teacher, you know, in an institution, but not the sort of arguments that lead to anywhere that's like, try to imagine, like, where does that lead to? Like, who cares? Who really cares about any of those things? The way we nominate it, what does it matter? And you could say, well, it's language, you know, it matters because we're going to refer to them as something particular, and you know, the fact that that something has a definition means that we can all understand it. But, and in that sense, I can, yes, you know, that there is obvious value to that, to communicating, you know, to the act of being able to present ideas to other people, and that they are intelligently communicated. But I don't know. It's just that I don't know. I've seen shows in the art world that are concerned with that definition, but they're only concerned with it because it serves their purpose. So, for example, a curator is going to curate a show, and and you know, they're going to propose a definition for drawing or a definition for painting. So certain pieces of work will serve that purpose, to, you know, reinforce that definition or to expand that definition. And in that sense, that's usually what happens with the art world. They, you know, the people that are interested in proposing, you know, examining the limits of those definitions, they'll do shows that can, you know, lead people to think and to reflect upon those things. But for us, I mean, if I was doing something and I refer to it as a drawing, let's say, and people would be like, I don't think that's a drawing, I think that's a painting, I would be like, okay, let's call it a painting then. And I would have no issues in just referring to it as a painting from then on. I just don't see it as something that's problematic. Like I wouldn't spend a second just arguing with somebody saying, no, this is a drawing, and the person would be like, no, it's a painting. Like that leads nowhere. That can be very boring, and it can just, I don't know. It can take us nowhere. So.
¿Has jugado Fall Guys?
¿Está preguntando en serio? Yeah, we do. Danny and I, we haven't played for a long time though. But qué pena, en español.
Sí, en español.
Sí,
Pero
Danny,
al principio jugábamos.
al principio
Cuando
jugábamos.
salió jugábamos harto.
Sí,
Está muy feo.
exacto. Cuando salió jugábamos mucho más. Nos reíamos mucho. Dani era mejor que yo, eso es como muy cierto para muchos videojuegos.
Hace poco tratamos de jugar y te
Uy,
estresaste.
sí, me fue grave.
Sí, 2 rondas y ya.
Me fue grave, sí. Porque además ya mucha gente sabe jugar. Yo me sentía mucho mejor cuando poca gente sabía jugar.
Y además hay cosas nuevas.
Sí.
Cada rato, entonces es complicado, pero sí.
Sí, pero sí jugábamos. Estamos jugando es el de Ratchet. Nosotros tratamos de jugar como juegos que podamos jugar los dos. No necesariamente como co-op, pero que podamos jugar los dos.
Como
por ejemplo,
turnarnos,
el de
así,
Ratchet
sí.
nos turnamos, pero cuando jugamos Cuphead sí jugábamos como
Sí.
juntos. Y ese lo acabamos, aunque Dani me arrastró todo el tiempo.
No.
todo el tiempo.
No, tú eras
Sí,
bueno
sí.
en algunos.
En algunos.
Que
Sí.
yo no era buena,
Ahí me
me
está
refiero.
regalando
No, no,
eso.
no, no.
Ahí me está regalando eso de en algunos. Y jugamos como. ¿Cuál fue? Sackboy. Jugamos
Sackboy
ahorita en el
también.
Play, también lo acabamos. O sea, cosas así. Nos va. Es chévere cuando podemos jugar juntos. Que la he tratado de convencer, oye, mírame, voy a jugar esto y tú
No,
me
pero
puedes
pues es
mirar.
que la
Y Dani es como,
propuesta
no,
es.
pues qué chimba,
No,
qué
sí, la vez
delicia.
pasada me dijo, ¿quieres ver una película o quieres verme jugar un juego? Y yo, no, pues una película.
Pero es que hay juegos re
¿Cómo
chéveres
así
que
que
son.
verte jugar?
Pero es que hay juegos que son chéveres de
No,
ver
pues
jugar.
que me veas tú jugar a mí.
No,
Pero
no, tampoco.
por eso, no, no, no.
Pues cuando juegas mejor que yo siempre te termino teniendo que ver jugar porque pues pasas todo.
No, porque es un mundo que paso y luego jugamos los dos.
Y luego pierdo y
No
luego
es
otra
siéntate
vez.
a verme jugar, pero sí. Talking about paper, no sé cómo se dice, arches, sorry, makes a cotton paper that it paint like nothing else. Have you tried? It's not cheap though.
Yeah, no, we haven't tried it. We were saying yesterday how there's a lot of things that are not really available to us that, you know, I would love to try tons of the things that are, I even saw that there's this German paper that's incredible to paint on, but it's only sold in Germany, and I could try and go through the trouble of ordering it, and it is expensive. I think I looked at it or I looked into it, and it was kind of expensive. But yeah, we try to make do with what we have here. Like I was speaking about that also yesterday, and I think that's there's something kind of cool about that, about saying, well, this is what we have, and it may not be the best, but you know, it's good enough for us, and we're gonna use that. Like that's gonna be those are gonna be our materials. So.
What was the German paper called? They're
¿Te
asking.
acuerdas el de Matthias? Es que
No.
I'm gonna try. It's gonna take me like a second.
No, la
Let me see if because it's the, let me see, you can track it, because it was Matthias Notzold. Matthias Notzold. So if you follow him in Instagram, he's a super good painter, really good painter. Matthias Notzold. Hanemule? No, it wasn't Hanemule. Let me see. And I asked him at some point. So I'm looking at my conversation because they were both in that paper that. I thought it was in the conversation that I had with him. Maybe not, or I think I took a screenshot, but I would have to look for it. Give me like a little bit, and I'll try to look for it, or let me look for it super quickly because maybe it's in my screenshots. So just look at this painting and imagine that I'm painting something exciting. Screenshots. Let's see. Oh my God, this is a mess. I'm never gonna find this here. Oh, there we go. It's called it's a linen structured paper by a German brand, Bosner. So it's Boesner.
Espera, ¿cómo?
So Danny's gonna look for it.
Boesner.
Yeah. Trata de buscar Boesner paper.
Manda el nombre.
Yeah. So that is a kick-ass paper. That is a really incredible paper. So if you guys are looking for, you know, something that I can tell that it's really tremendous. It's an amazing surface. For sure, that one, yeah.
Es que muchos.
No. Es el que sea como para pintar, multimedia. Maybe it's multimedia, yeah.
Or no, I don't know how to pronounce this.
Mándate.
No. Pedersei.
No sé qué es eso.
No.
No sé qué es eso.
Sí, no. Voy a mandar la página. ver, otra. Em,
I'm trying to clean this edge because I know I want to drop this shoulder down to here, which means, and I'm liking the fact that this is lighter, so that this is a lighter background. I don't need it to be super clean.
if I remember correctly, Nicolas's mom is an artist, printmaker.
Yep, yep.
Do you ever get together and create?
When I was little, yeah, but my mom has stopped. She's an amazing grandmother now. But when I was little, yes. After that, no, I can't say I have. I've been wanting to use some of the, or to accompany better, some of the, she has the woodblock prints that she did some of her woodblocks, and I have a couple. They're at my mother's house, but they're mine, and I've been wanting to try and think, you know, what would a painting that would accompany these woodblocks look like, and it's super exciting to me. So maybe in the future, I think that's a bigger ask, but it would be very exciting, I feel. But yeah, she's my mother, so I'm never gonna be able to, you know, understand her objectively, but because, you know, the reason that I do what I do is because of her, so but I think she's amazing, you know. She just wasn't, unfortunately, she was part of a whole generation, or she was part of a market generation that never really saw printmaking as something, you know, valuable. So it was very heartbreaking. I mean, still now, if people are doing printmaking, they are, you know, it's because they absolutely love printmaking, because it's not something that is going to garner a lot of attention. It's not something that's going to, you're going to be able to ask for fair prices, because people are always going to understand it as, oh, this is not an original, and this is a copy, and that's always going to be part of the kind of like the mindset of collectors. So yeah, unfortunately, there's not like there's not a culture of understanding printmaking as something that can be, you know, as valuable as any painting. So
They're telling us that Boesner, or
but Boisner
is the most famous art story in Germany.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
we
so,
didn't know that. So
do you think defining art terms leads to limitations? What kind of questions do you think we should ask about art?
oof, I mean, that's a super loaded question. The first part of your question, yes, because if you're stuck in thinking that the definition is the important part and not the expression, not what you're expressing through, you know, whatever it is that you chose to use, then sure, you know, you're wasting kind of like precious energy and time and possibilities. But what sort of questions? Oof. I mean, the toughest one that I obviously ask myself constantly is, you know, what is this good for? Like, if it's good for anything, and if it goes beyond just this kind of selfish, this selfish act of self-recognition. But I always felt, I always kind of try to fight back that instinct that I have to question those things, because, you know, to me, self-recognition means that you are trying to learn something about yourself, but, you know, that learning something about yourself is only going to make sense and be activated if you put it to good use with the people that surround you. I mean, the society that's around you, or the family that you spend your time with. So it's no good if you know, it serves no purpose at all if all those discoveries you keep to yourself and you just keep going. I always think that the lessons are learned, you know, through a painting, and then you put those lessons to work in real life. You activate those in real life. But I don't know, painting, you know, in my darker days, which I obviously have, I question everything about painting. Every single aspect of painting, I do question, especially now that art, there is a more flexible border, a more flexible parameter between art and social responsibility, let's call it. Painting, when put against those those bigger, broader, far more relevant subjects, falls short. It's always going to fall short. And people say no, that's not true. But I always tell people, like, okay, when have you seen a painting being discussed, as something ubiquitous, like, that on Thanksgiving your family gets together and you start talking about a painting, like that doesn't happen. People don't discuss painting. We discuss paintings, but people, like the rest, we are such a small minority that we think that what we talk about is what people talk about. But in reality, no, people don't really talk about paintings. They don't really have them, as part of their lives. They don't really understand them as something that's part of their lives. And if they do, like, honestly, it's just a small minority of people. But yeah, whenever I think of those things, I realize, wow, then what is, what can be done with painting? Like, what is the purpose of painting then? Particularly if it's not going to be part of a broader, bigger, more relevant conversation. What are we doing here then? And that's why, in my case, I mean, this doesn't have to be the path that other people choose. This does just kind of make sense for me. I've chosen to understand painting as a vehicle, not really as an end. I mean, I've always said it, like, the end is almost inevitable, which is a painting, the physical object of painting, this thing that I'm doing right now. If you are painting, you're gonna end up making a painting, so that's, you could just understand it as simply as that. But maybe perhaps the important part of painting doesn't lie in the object of painting, and perhaps it lies in everything, even like in the discussion that we're having right now. It could be that that's like a far more welcoming aspect of painting, and not just this need to make paintings. So for me, I started to minimize the apparent relevance that a painting could have, and I started to pay more attention to everything that goes sort of around, or everything that accompanies the painting act, everything that surrounds the painting act. And I feel that that's kind of interesting. So.
¿Tienes planeado venir a Townsend Atelier en persona?
Sí, pero yo creo que el próximo año. Por ahora tenemos ese taller virtual previsto para diciembre. Toca ver si, como todos los talleres, pues toca ver si se llena, porque pues obviamente los talleres realmente se hacen si hay, si hay como un mínimo de personas que esté interesado. Yo he sido muy afortunado que pues cuando hago talleres se llenan, pero no quiere decir que, o sea, uno siempre está súper nervioso pensando, no, de pronto no, esta idea como que no le va a llamar la atención a la gente, o de pronto no tiene nada que ver con uno, y es que la gente dice, no, pues es que en diciembre me queda difícil hacer un taller, o siempre hay como muchas variables ahí curiosísimas que de pronto no tienen nada que ver con lo que uno está proponiendo, pero sí, yo adoro ir allá hay muchos pintores allá están muchos pintores que conozco también, que son fantásticos. Entonces, cada vez que puedo ir allá, pues me veo con ellos también, así sea un momentico, y chévere. Entonces, seguro el próximo año voy allá. Peggy y Stan siempre me tratan increíble y siempre trato de responderles trabajando súper juicioso, entonces espero que el próximo año no vaya a ser distinto.
Any advices on how to let go of copying images And to use references as a starting point instead?
I mean, you don't have to go overboard as I'm going right now, which I'm clearly just thinking of design and just distortion and just generating all these relationships with all these shapes. You don't have to kind of go to this. I'm not even going to call it extreme because I don't think what I'm doing is just particularly too weird, but um, but it does help me. You know, as soon as I realize, oh, I am going to start distorting something like an aspect of what I'm doing, it's also like a very easy way to say now it's just immediately apparent or evident that I don't have to look at my photograph as my end. Like my photograph is going to give me a source, is going to become the source of a bunch of information, but it's not going to be the end. It's just going to be the beginning of a far more hopefully exciting act of painting, or an exercise of painting where I'm going to put myself in trouble and I'm going to try to solve a bunch of things, and that to me is probably what excites me the most when I have a reference, and when I tell myself, okay, this is my starting point. Let's see what can happen from here.
Sorry if this has already been asked, but
No, don't
how do
worry.
you find it easier to work with black and white reference photos when you're painting with a more out of the palette, okay, out there palette of colors? Sorry.
How did I find it easier? Because there's no color information
Do
there.
you find it easier?
Oh,
Sorry.
yeah, I find it easier. Oh yeah, for sure, because I'm not conditioned by colors that are there, so if it makes me understand that I have to first solve what I want to do with my painting, and that makes me pay more attention to my painting than it does to the photograph. Then I'm not going to be wasting my time just constantly comparing things to my photo, but I'm going to be looking at my painting. And I know that sounds kind of, dumb, because it's like, yeah, sure, of course, why wouldn't you look at your painting? Like, that's what you're supposed to do, right? And you'd be surprised when we're working from photographs, sometimes we look and we spend a ton of time just, we're almost like absorbed by that photograph, and that photograph, we don't realize it, but it starts to become our goal. Very quickly we start to recognize it as our goal, and then the painting just becomes like a means to get to that goal, and that's about it. But when you start paying more attention to your painting, you realize that the goal changes constantly. Like every time you make a decision or you shift something, then you are sort of reinterpreting what you wanted with your painting, or there's possibilities in your painting that start appearing that you didn't really consider. And if you are kind of on your toes and you're willing to make changes and shifts and you start seeing your goal as something that's far more fluid, and that can be reinterpreted, reimagined, redefined constantly, then it's super exciting for me. And I think that if I convince myself that we're going to make it super evident that the painting will not be answering to like a naturalist impulse from the beginning, then it's all like downhill from there. Like downhill in a good sense. Like that was the peak of the roller coaster, and then it's just down. You just go down. It's super fun. I mean, you're still very much so responsible to what you're gonna do with your image, to what you're gonna say, but you've liberated yourself from so much weight that now it's like, okay, this is the fun part. Like now I can start enjoying my painting.
Has watching yourself paint changed your art at all? In example, I have watched myself draw and have seen where the drawing was working, but then I lose what I was working by drawing over it too much.
Yeah, I always do. I used to, you know what I used to hate? I used to hate listening to myself. Like Danny knows this, and it was the toughest thing for me at the beginning. I used to always feel like I sounded like an idiot. I still think I do. I still think I sound like an idiot. But I started watching myself just to see why, you know, just to evaluate why I made certain decisions. And it's super, super interesting. You know, I start to say, you know, when I watch myself paint, I always tell myself, oh, that was a good moment for the painting. And I'm very mad when I didn't see that while I was painting. Like, I always tell myself like, oh, I could have stopped there, or I should have stopped there. And it pisses me off when I didn't see it. And then I see myself struggle to try to get back to something that, you know, resembles that moment that I, you know, recognized when I'm watching the video. So it's very frustrating, but honestly, it doesn't change the way I work. It just makes me, or maybe it does, but it just makes me far more alert, I think, while I'm painting. I think if it's changed anything in me, it's probably that. It's just made me far more in tune with what I'm doing. So I'm constantly kind of trying to evaluate my decisions and see how a bad decision maybe took the painting somewhere else, and maybe a good decision is showing me the way. But yeah, I think that's probably the most important aspect of that.
There is really no visual art that you really don't like or you have a difficulty to relate to?
Visual art?
Yeah.
Oof, like, I don't know. I think both Danny and myself are super open to anything. When we watch shows and or we go to exhibits, like, there's nothing that I would say that we are opposed to just naturally.
Yeah, like close to?
No. I think, you know, we always give anything a chance, because if it moves us, then it moves us, you know. Then, and once you realize that that chance to be moved by something can come from anywhere, you start, you know, you realize that you can't dismiss anything. That it's just serves no purpose to say, oh, I'm gonna decide that I can't learn from this, that I can't be moved by this. I don't know. No, I don't think we've, you know, sometimes we just don't like things because we don't connect to them, but we never try to, we never believe that speaks more broadly about us not being able to connect with a, you know, I don't know, whatever manner of expression we're looking at. I think we're very open about it, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, and that's both of us. We just, if we like something, we like it. It doesn't matter where it comes from. And if we don't, we try to understand. We also try to talk about why we didn't, like why we didn't like something. I think that's super important. If we didn't connect with something, and, you know, even though we are, I think Danny and I are very, very much in tune, there's tons of things that we like that the other one doesn't like.
Yeah.
That happens a lot also. And it's very funny because it's almost like we attach our ego to those things that we like, and we don't understand why the other person doesn't like it. So I'll show something to Danny, like on my Instagram, and she'll be like, yeah, but I like this other thing a little bit better. Or she'll show me something and I'm like, yeah, but I don't follow them, I don't know if I like that. And it's almost like we feel offended.
Yeah, so we try to convince the other.
Yeah. We're always like, you don't see
wait,
it? Like,
yeah.
that's amazing. No, let me show you more. And we try to, no, let me show you more of this person's work. But yeah, I think Danny and I intersect in a lot of things.
Like the majority, I think. Completely.
Yeah, no, majority. That's
Majority,
fine.
sorry.
Yeah, but I think we do, but there are moments where, you know, we'll be super open about it, and we'll say like, yeah, that didn't do it for me. And that's fine. That's totally fine. We try to understand why. I think that's super nice for us. Also in the sense that, you know, in that way we are understanding each other a little bit more. So I think it speaks also about ourselves. So
Yeah, but the medium is never a
no,
problem,
no.
like an obstacle.
No,
Like, oh,
no.
that's a great, I don't know,
Like video
painting, but
installation.
it's digital, so
Yeah, exactly.
no, that's never.
No. Or like, oh yeah, we don't do video installations,
Yeah.
or we don't do performances.
Yeah.
No, anything. You know, if we like it, that it's, you know, we're happy that we were able to have that experience.
Hey Danny, hey Nick. I don't have confidence when talking to people about my art. Any tips?
Um, but you know, I can't see how that. Well, I don't want to be. I don't want to push you into that, but I think I think that if you understand it as you talking about yourself and not just talking about your art, but you're just having a conversation about the things that you're moved by and the things that you like and the things that you enjoy, um, I think you should feel comfortable. I mean, not you should. I'm sorry, but I'm hopeful that you can find that you can be far more comfortable if you view it that way, because it's not just about art. Like, if you're talking about just the painting, like conversations can be super boring, or they can be very limiting, I guess, and the lifespan or the interesting things that you can get from those conversations is usually not that large. But I think when you start speaking about somebody's life, or you know, when you understand somebody contextually, and when you ask them where they're from, and you start realizing that the reason that they paint things is actually tied to who they are, and the need to say things, the need to express certain things comes from, you know, many times comes from these life experiences. So maybe you can just begin to feel a little more comfortable just sharing who you are, where you know, and maybe if you're like, I have no clue who I am, like I'm still figuring that out, you can just you know, speak about where you grew up and how you're, you know, what sort of family you grew up with, and the things that were cool about that, the things that were not so cool. You know, those are really kind of interesting conversations, and they don't have to revolve around painting.
Yeah, and sometimes I think that, um, like people think that you have to over explain. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I did this painting and it has like a big idea behind, and sometimes it's just that you like something, and I also think it's fine for you to don't have much to say about some things you do.
That's great. Yep.
No?
Yeah, that's totally right. That's totally true. But unfortunately, and Danny knows this too, but for example, the art world
Yeah.
almost like indirectly teaches you that that's not a good response. Like, that you should always be able to verbalize intelligently why you painted something, and the why has to be, the why can't just be, oh, because I thought it was cool, or because I, you know, it moved me. Like, usually the why has to be super deep, and that's your discourse. Like, that's what you're trying to say with your painting. And I don't know why it has to be that way, because there are other things in life. I don't like when art has to behave, or behaves differently than other aspects of life. And there are other things in life that you can just, you know, it's very tough to answer. Like, if you would ask me, like, why I like football, like watching football, I don't, you know, I could give you like an idea of why, and I could tell you that, you know, my father used to take me to football games when I was little, and I used to enjoy that tremendously with him. Um, and you know, perhaps there's a bigger reason for my you know, my enjoyment of football, and it has to do with when I was a kid and my father. But honestly, I just think it's just this incredible game. I just think, you know, it's like, it's the same as painting. It's an expression of the human being, I feel, and I think it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. But I don't have to justify it to anyone. Other people could say, oh, football is crap, and people are idiots for enjoying football. There's like far more important things in life, and I get it. Yes, sure, but you know, I'll tell people, okay, I respect that. I totally understand, but trust me, probably next day I'm gonna be watching the Liverpool match because it's just important for me. That's just something that I enjoy and that I love, that is part of my life. So I think that yeah, sometimes we can have those things, and painting for sure can be one of those things. It doesn't have to be this thing that has to be like has to be explained and it has to satisfy everyone.
Um, in the wash week, you talk about being uncomfortable with the paint. Do you purposely do things in oil to make yourself uncomfortable and push yourself?
I think so. I mean, I didn't know what to expect when I told myself, okay, these are the relationships that I'm gonna try to make work in today's painting. I I mean, I could visualize them in my head, but I didn't really know how they were gonna work. So so that to me is super exciting because it just makes the painting more alive, or the painting act far more alive, in the sense that I don't know where the painting is headed, and aside from just having to solve a painting, you also have to make a painting that, or something that stands as a painting in the end. You also have this task in front of you, which is like you now have to paint it. You now have to, while you're trying to make sense of it, you also have to paint it, and you also have to learn from it while you're painting it, so it can instruct the decisions that you're going to make, or the decisions that you're going to take as you're painting it. So that to me is like super exciting. It's really, really exciting. So
When talking about one's art, do you think it's okay to talk about the ideas or questions that inspire the painting without having a point or answer to the painting?
um, well, the painting doesn't necessarily have to answer things. I think that the painting is, or maybe the painting is just an attempt to answer things, but I wouldn't find a painting useless or hopeless or ineffective if it wasn't able to answer those things. And I think that that's the, not the problem, but that's the trap that we sometimes fall into when we think that the answers have to come in the shape of a painting. Because what if the painting doesn't find those answers? Like, what if you're left just as clueless, when you finish the painting as when you started the painting? Like, does that mean that it was a bad painting? Does that mean that the painting now is worthless because you weren't able to gather the information that you wanted to, or gather the answers that you wanted to? I don't know. I don't think it's meant to be that. It's or I think that painting can be far more useful if we don't subject it um, to those conditions. If we don't condition painting in terms of saying like, hey, if you're able to prove, this thesis that I was trying to push with my painting, that I was trying to promote with my painting, then if you're able to do it, then you served your purpose. And if you didn't, then it was a waste of time. No, to me, like, even the worst of my paintings can be incredibly useful, in the sense that I'm always going to be, I can understand them as learning opportunities. So
Um, do you guys watch Ted Lasso?
I did, but it's
No,
not
I
that.
haven't.
Yeah, Danny hasn't, but it's not because I watched it and I didn't want to include Danny. We usually watch every show together, every single thing we watch. But I watched it. I started watching it on a plane when I went to Rome, and it was so cool that that I just watched the whole first season. I know there's a second season, and I think people have been saying that it's not as good as the first. But in Rome, when I was resting, I would just at night I would just kind of watch that. I kind of binged that first season, and it was amazing. He's adorable. He's incredible. So yeah, I've liked him ever since he did the commercials. So it was those were like super fun. I think those were, I don't even remember what those were for. Maybe for a World Cup. Maybe it was just like NBC doing commercials for the World Cup. And he was hired by Tottenham, I remember, by the Spurs. And I remember that he couldn't say Tottenham. He was like Tottenham. Something like that. I don't know. But I remember those commercials. They were like super funny.
Espera. Did you watch the OA? No. No,
¿Cuál
we
es
haven't.
esa?
Una de Netflix. Yo la he visto en Netflix, pero no. Is
Ah,
it good?
No.
We haven't. We
Yeah.
haven't seen it.
We haven't seen it. Let us know if it's good. You guys should recommend shows.
Yeah.
Just to give you an idea of what we like, I think our
Dark.
favorite show is Dark.
Yeah, dark.
Our favorite show ever is Dark. I mean, Danny was taking notes. She has a notebook full of notes on Dark that she would take, after the first seasons. But that one changed our lives. I think that one is just, it's amazing. It ended. I think it ended fine. I'm not gonna say, we're not gonna spoil it for anyone, but I think it ended fine. Some people had trouble with that ending. I thought it was fine. I mean, a lot of people refer to it almost like as if it was like a Game of Thrones ending. No, not at all. I mean, I think it was solid until the end, to be completely honest. But yeah, Dark was our jam.
Yeah, they're saying they like Dark too. Anything you gained from going to art school? Do you think you could have learned what you know on your own?
Probably not, to be honest. But I think because my experience in art school is also, revolved around having really cool relationships with my friends and with my teachers. So I don't know if I could have kind of gotten that from not going. But having said that, and if you guys know me, I'm very critical of institutions in the sense that I think almost every single university or art school that offers the opportunity to do a bachelor, like a BFA or an MFA, they're always just ridiculously overpriced. Even here in Bogota, where I was teaching and where Danny graduated from, it was ridiculous. I mean, what Danny ended up paying on the last semesters was just, I mean, completely out of proportion to what people earn here in Bogota. So it's that, to me, I'll never understand. I'll never ever be a part of, and that was part of a reason why I quit, because a lot of people just justify it like, yeah, but we can make the change from within, and I always felt bad. I always felt like, not really. We can't change anything from within. Like, if these people are paying us, and here in Bogota, paying us terribly, it doesn't. We can't be critical and then saying, okay, I want my paycheck. Like that's at least in my brain, that doesn't make sense. So part of me leaving was also an acknowledgement that that I just wasn't. I wasn't in tune with a lot of the ways in which they understood education, the institution, like our university understood education. And yeah, I felt, okay, it's time for me to go. I think I've done, I think that my cycle there was over. It was 12 years. I think that's more than enough to feel like, I was glad that I could accompany tons of young people in their careers. But I told myself, no, it's probably time for me to move to something else, and for younger people, and that's what actually happened, which is super cool, for younger people to move into these classes and teach them and learn how to teach them, and just so that there's a new generation of teachers coming up. I thought that was also super important, because I've talked about this before, but I think that if I hadn't quit, like I would have still been working there. They probably wouldn't have fired me. So it's very sad when you realize that the only chance that a younger person could have had for teaching that class is if I decided to leave, because they wouldn't have challenged me, I think, in any way, and that's super sad, because how does a young person then start their career in teaching if there's literally no way to get into a university to teach or an art school to teach? That's like super, super sad. So I felt like, okay, it's time for me to go.
Talking about series,
Yes?
they told us there's a series called Hannibal.
Oh, yeah.
It's gritty, very creative and artistically centered, so we can watch that. A movie with the same vibe as Dark is Upstream Colors.
Never seen it?
Yeah, I write them down so we
Okay. I've never seen that. I've never heard of that movie.
Did you watch BoJack Horseman?
I tried for a little bit. I'm more of a Rick and Morty fan. And with Danny, we're watching Community, because I had never watched Community. And I'm so shocked of how much Rick and Morty is in Community. I mean, you can totally tell, like, there's so many ideas that come from Community that ended up in becoming Rick and Morty, that it's incredible. It's amazing. But yeah, I'm not like, I won't defend Rick and Morty to the death. I'm not like people that take it way too seriously. I just think it's funny and absurd and dumb, and I just laugh. And I think that it's not afraid to make jokes about things that many other people are afraid to make jokes about. So I always find that really interesting.
They also say I lost the comment.
No.
Era otra serie.
¿Sí?
Sí.
Ya era la mejor del mundo.
Korean series, I think, but yeah, Signal. They say if you like Dark, you would like Signal. It's a Korean show on Netflix.
Sometimes we don't get stuff that people get in other countries. That's also the other thing. Here in Colombia, we get a different Netflix, so I would have to have like a VPN, and we had VPN for like a trial. Yeah, because if I put it in my computer, then I can't really use it for my TV, for our TV. So what I was doing was kind of like streaming from my computer. We have like a Steam box. This is getting super specific, but I was using the Steam box that I have to stream from my computer, where I had the VPN, so that we could watch on our TV. And I was like, okay, this is way too cumbersome. Like, honestly, it's not terrible. It's like $100 a year, I think it is. Something like that, maybe a little bit more. It's not super terrible having a VPN, but yeah, it's just that I got frustrated that I wasn't able to hook it up to the TV.
They're telling us that Solar Opposites is the same creator of Rick and Morty, the one I showed you.
Oh,
yesterday.
Dan Harmon. Yeah. I actually told Danny that they look like, because Danny liked the animation, I guess.
the title.
Right, or the
like
the font
Yeah.
also. Yeah, but I was saying how the animation looked like Rick and Morty, like Dan Harmon for sure.
Oh, and we're watching Only Murders in the Building.
Oh yeah, we like that one too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're actually enjoying that one. That one's kind of dumb but fun.
No,
Makes
it's
us
not
laugh.
dumb. I don't think it's dumb.
It's
I
kind of
like
dumb,
it.
like
No.
dumb in a good way. That's not a bad thing.
Have you done a large mural?
No, never. I think that I'd be super excited. I just don't know how to go about it. Honestly, I have never used a spray can in my life, and I'm not afraid of heights. So I think that I'd be fine with the with going up and painting. But I've never done one of those paintings in my life. I've done large paintings. I don't think the size would intimidate me, but I just don't know how to go about it, to be totally honest. And I have no clue how those people make a living. I'm guessing that they're sponsored, you know, the walls or the facades of the buildings are sponsored and they get paid. But I have no clue how much they get paid. Like, how much can you get? Do you guys know? Do you guys know, like, if you're really well known, how much do you get paid for, like, a building? You know, a facade of a building? Or if it's just about, you know, not ego, but just self-promotion, I guess.
No, but I think
They
they
have to
get,
they
yeah,
have to
because
get paid.
they have to live.
Yeah. And
Like, paid
those cans are
deals,
like
yeah.
super expensive too.
Yeah.
So
Cuando estabas en SBA y te comunicabas mucho con James Jean, ¿te acuerdas de tus compañeros de clase? Ese grupo, Isao, Tomer, Mupan y demás estudiaban
sí,
contigo.
Mu es después, pero con James sí, teníamos clases con James, con Isao, con Tomer, y era, pues, ver a James pintar era increíble, o sea, era un genio desde jovencitico. Por ejemplo, ver a Isao dibujar era una locura. Isao es un monstruo. Isao es de esos estudiantes que le dieron la beca full al comienzo de la carrera. Era un animal para dibujar, así absurdo. Nosotros nos sentábamos uno al lado del otro cuando teníamos clase de dibujo del natural. No, y yo lo veía dibujar a él y yo era como, o sea, había mil cosas que yo nunca podía ni entender qué él estaba haciendo. Él fue súper lindo, él en el libro de él, yo ni me había dado cuenta. Él en el texto que pone al comienzo, ¿es al comienzo o al final? Yo ya ni me acuerdo.
Al comienzo, sí, no
Sí,
estoy mal.
ahí me menciona súper chévere, súper bonito. Y pues para el libro que hicimos, para el libro pasado que hicimos, yo le pedí a James que me escribiera el forward, entonces chévere, no, son personas muy amables, o sea, tengo la fortuna que siguen siendo personas súper abiertas, súper amables, les podría pedir un favor o tener una conversación con ellos en cualquier momento y eso es muy chévere. Incluso con James, que ahora es pues un artista enorme, entonces...
Camila O'Gorman.
Hola Camila.
Hola Camila, nos dice, here in Buenos Aires, there's a young muralist that gets 20,000 for a building.
What? Chao, ya terminé, gracias. Later, I'm done, goodbye, good night. Buildings is gonna be my thing from now on. No, I'm sure, like here in Bogota, no, that doesn't happen. I think that the people that I think Ledania is probably like the most famous one of us. I think so. She travels.
Cero.
Sí, Zeroker, pero Ledania viaja por todo el mundo y la invitan por todo el mundo a hacer grafitis.
Sí. Pero y Daniela Rincón, la que estudió conmigo, que yo te mostré.
Sí, está haciendo cosas muy chéveres.
Súper chéveres.
Sí, pero muchas veces a ellos les dan es plata para los materiales.
Sí, no, yo creo que les pagan. Es que la verdad no sé, no tengo ni idea, pero yo sí creo. Me acordé que hace poco de que efectivamente soy un poco daltónico y me puede costar darme cuenta de que a veces estoy pintando la piel verde. ¿Debería intentar corregirlo o no?
No, nunca. No, pinte lo que ve y ya. Y pues que la otra gente sea quien tiene que lidiar con eso. Ay, es que había un pintor acá y ya se me olvidó. Ugh. Un pintor muy bueno, muy bueno. Es que se me está olvidando, no sé por qué el nombre de él. Ahorita de pronto me acuerdo. Pero él era daltónico y las pinturas del comienzo de él eran increíbles. O sea, increíbles. Eran como grises, súper sucias, pero así, espectaculares. Y de un momento a otro se puso esas gafas que tienen como tinte, como unas gafas que son como moradas y supuestamente exageran como los matices de los colores que las personas que tienen un tipo de daltonismo no pueden ver. Y no, las pinturas después de eso son horrorosas. O sea, qué pena lo digo así abiertamente, pero son horrorosas. Entonces, no sé, o sea, pinte lo que usted ve, pinte el mundo que usted ve. Se me hace mucho más interesante eso a como tratar de ajustarse a una idea de un mundo que usted tampoco entiende. Entonces, no, pinte los colores que ve. Genial.
Here in France, murals are everywhere, and there is a lot of money for the painters. They are cheap for the communities to do something really visible. They're telling us so.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully in the future I'll look into it. But I've never done one, so I would have to start to do some just so that I could have like a portfolio. And after that would be able to tell people, okay, I'm gonna paint this. But
What's your favorite book? Danny too.
I think when I was doing ¿qué semana era esa?
¿Cuál?
Que hablé, when I was doing the Villain Week, yeah, which is recent, I ended up painting Messier Thénardier, and I was saying how of all the books I've read and reread, I always kind of go back to Les Miserables because that one changed my life. I feel it just, I don't know. It's just it's one of those books that you I had never felt that before I read that book, where you're trying to read but you're so mad at what you're reading that you want to put it down, or you feel that there's such an injustice that is happening that you kind of you want to put it down and you don't want to keep reading, and that to me is like incredible. That to me is absolutely amazing. So yeah, so even though it's one of those classics, I think it's like in many ways like an easy answer, and it's always easy when you say, oh, my favorite writer is Borges or Cortázar or Kafka or Victor Hugo, or these big names in literature. To me, it just remains to be true. I know it's like a classic. I know it's like almost like a super easy answer, but I have like a super deep connection with that book. So I love it. I adore that book.
And my favorite book?
No sé.
No, es que además dice traducirlos.
No,
I read them in Spanish, so I don't know if I'm doing a good translation, but The Invention of Solitude, I think it's called.
No sé cómo se, no sé.
By Paul Auster. I like that a lot. Como digo, Alexis fue el tratado del inútil combate.
No.
Es
No.
que lo traje y todo, pero yeah. There's another book from Marguerite Yourcenar that I liked a lot, but I don't know how to translate the title. And I like the book I gave to you, the one of the artist, the Colombian artist that was Emma Reyes.
Yeah.
That's like a correspondence
Yeah.
of letters that she sent to a friend. That's a very good book too. But
I never finished that one, and Danny shamed me because she took it and she finished it. Yeah, but it's a heartbreaking book. It was like destroying me.
Yeah. I have a hard time getting playful when I'm painting. I always revert back to the reference and over restrict my mark making. Any advice to get more playful when you're working and liking how it looks?
I just didn't. For example, for me, it's the fact that I don't know where I'm headed, like the fact that I am kind of building towards something, but I didn't have like a clear idea of where I was heading, and the only way I'm going to be able to get close to understanding this image is it's just by, you know, if I keep going, if I keep at it, if I keep whacking at it. So that to me is like super exciting to know that, you know, there's nothing cooler than entering like this territory where you don't really know what you're doing, like you can't really control it. And maybe it's playful also perhaps means surrendering a bit of control, you know, and maybe we are more keen to be playful if we teach ourselves how to surrender control. And perhaps when we are not willing to be playful is when we just want to exercise that control over our painting, because we want to revert to the things that we know how to do. And yeah, so I think in the end a lot of these things are about just putting your guard down and just telling yourself, okay, let me try this. And I have no idea if this is going to end up being a successful painting or not. It doesn't matter. Like, let me give myself this chance to learn something from today's experience. And you have to grant yourself that opportunity. If you don't, then there's no way in hell that you're gonna let yourself be playful, because you're always gonna be like in the background trying to say, okay, that's a little too much. Okay, that looks dumb. That looks stupid. You have to almost be willing to not judge your painting. And oof, that's a tough part. That's a tough one.
A ver. ¿Se puede conseguir tu libro anterior? He buscado en eBay, pero nada.
Incluso yo tengo algunos libros, pero ¿saben qué pasa? Que es que es tan costoso tener que mandar los libros por fuera, que la gente cuando le digo, bueno, pero se tienen que mandar por FedEx porque pues es la única opción que nosotros tenemos aquí de Colombia de mandar al exterior libros, la gente rápidamente se desentusiasma. La gente rápidamente como que pierde el gusto. No digo que es que ahí ya no les interesa el libro, pero pues se dan cuenta que de pronto el solo envío incluso empieza a ser costoso, entonces como que ya no. Yo tengo algunos muy pocos libros, pero los tengo acá y hay veces los llevo a talleres y los regalo en talleres y...
I like this question. Any plans for Halloween? What costumes you suggest I go as?
I have the most boring plan for Halloween because I'm going to be in an airport, coming back from my my workshop in Liverpool. So don't go as a Squid Game character, because I'm guessing that's going to be...
Oh yeah, everyone.
Yeah, that's going to be everyone. That, you know, PlayStation sacred symbol mask is going to be everywhere. I don't know. Are you going alone or are you going with somebody else? Because I always think that, you know, costumes that are, you know, if you're with a couple, they're always kind of cooler and funnier. So.
Yeah, but like a funny costume. I like.
Yeah,
that one.
I like bad homemade costumes.
Yeah.
Like that are funny. They can be cheap. I always love people that can be creative with their costumes and can, you know, you can find stuff in your house just to make it, or if you're gonna buy something, you don't have to like spend a ton of money just trying to buy it.
Yeah, but also when they are like super over the top.
But
that's amazing too.
I know, but that's like...
Yeah, but that's cool.
Yeah, but those are people that start thinking about their costume like November 1st.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, okay, New Year.
Yeah, but that's cool. Would you ever do an illustration for Rick and Morty or something like that if they ask you to?
Oh, hell yeah.
For like a DVD or a book or something?
Oh, like Adult Swim or something. Yeah, hell yeah. I would totally. I just don't know. I just don't think my work would lend itself for that, though. But yeah, I love to do those sort of things. I just don't get asked. I just don't get asked to do those things, but I would love to.
Con respecto al libro, si uno está dispuesto, ¿todo bien con mandarte un correo?
Sí, por favor, claro.
A ver, espérate, escribo. Nicolás Uribe Art. ¿Sí?
Sí, sí.
@gmail.com.
Y obviamente es más fácil aquí en Bogotá, o sea, si es alguien aquí en Bogotá o en Colombia, pues es mucho más fácil. Sería mucho más fácil el envío.
Have you ever been asked to paint something crazy? What was it?
Crazy. Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, that one was fun. But I mean, crazy but dumb but fun. Just somebody, like a big ass painting of the Roadrunner and the Coyote, Wile E. Coyote, that he finally captured the Roadrunner. That one was kind of weird. I ended up doing like an 80 by 60 painting, 80 like 2 meters by 1.50 meter painting of that. But that one was super fun. But I mean, I have, and they are embarrassing, so maybe I shouldn't mention them, but they were just very, let's just put it this way, they were just very tacky, very tacky, super tacky paintings. And I remember one person once wanted like the Three Graces, like the Rubens painting of the Three Graces, and he wanted the painting to have like like fashion models playing the part of those Three Graces, and I remember telling that person, well, you know, that's a good fantasy and all, but I just, you know, I don't know any of those people, so what are you? And he's like, oh no, I know those people, and I know that they would pose for the painting. So again, super iffy, super iffy, and even iffier here in Colombia if you get asked to do something like that. So I was like, I remember just considering it for like a millisecond and saying like, no, maybe not, thank you. That's kind of weird and tacky and horrible, and I don't want to be part of that. So.
¿Viste el partidazo del Liverpool contra el City?
El 2-2, claro, uy, brutal, sí, increíble, estuvo muy bueno, me encantó, o sea, no salí bravo del partido, como que dije, qué chévere, con el Chelsea pues son los equipos que están jugando así increíble en Europa, y entre ellos 3 seguro va a estar la Premier este año, entonces quedé muy contento, sí, empezó, además es que había empezado. O sea, el Liverpool pudo haber perdido ese partido re fácil. Y la verdad ahí se salvó que llegó al segundo tiempo y pudieron como ajustar. Pero sí, partidazo. Y Mo Salah está jugando como un animal, es un monstruo.
Does a butterfly winged baby fist pump count as crazy?
No, that's a classic. What are you talking about? That
was Van Sant. I know how to say it, so.
Van Sant, that's a classic, please. When we speak about that painting, we look down, you know. We have to lower our gaze and speak with hand in our heart and, yeah, show respect, please.
About the custom, they are telling us that maybe they're going as Johnny from The Room. I don't know who Johnny is.
No, I don't know either.
Yeah.
The Room? No sé.
Yeah. Voy a buscarlo.
¿Como una peli?
Johnny.
¿Una serie?
The Room is a successful banker who lives in... No, pues estoy leyendo. A ver si tú, ¿qué sabes más de pelis?
No, I've never seen that. No. What is that? A series? A TV show? I'm gonna adjust a little bit of the background, and I think I'm gonna be done because I love that this is like super simple, that this is dirty, So a little bit of yellow up there, and then it's just like this pink and green up there. But I need white. I don't know where my wood is.
As a beginner, do you think it's worth worrying about galleries and this more traditional way of selling art, or should I forget about it and go straight to the internet to sell my own work?
You could try. I mean, if in your community there's a gallery that you like, you know, I think the easiest way to do this is if you go to the gallery and if you look at the roster of the artists that are represented by that gallery, and if you enjoy their work, and if you constantly kind of go to those shows and you go like, oh, you know, I would love to be part of this gallery, like this gallery could be my home, for sure, like pursue that place, and if you are able to also, you know, ask the artist like how's their experience, you know, within that gallery, and if they have nothing but nice things to say about the gallery, that's awesome. So I think that if those things kind of meet, you know, if your interests line up, and if it's a possibility that in some way can be accessible to you, awesome. That's super, super cool. But, you know, and you'll lose nothing by just sending your work as a portfolio to a gallery that you envision yourself in. The worst thing that they can tell you is we don't want you here. I could actually, Linda, ¿me puedes hacer un favor?
Sí, esto siento que suena durísimo cuando escribo, perdón. Sí.
No. Es que tengo el folder, en el folder que tengo en ese cajón, en el foldercito ese azul.
Yo buscando acá.
No, ahí hay una carta.
En el folder.
¿Te acuerdas de ese folder azul? Es un foldercito azul que tengo ahí como con papeles.
¿Negro, no es?
No, es un folder, no, es como el folder aparte, tengo el resto de papeles.
¿Folder azul de papel?
Sí.
Sí, lo saco a ver.
Sí. So I'm asking Danny, and I'll read it for you guys, because I think I'm done. I think this was fun. I don't even know if it looks like Neo Rauch, but I'm kind of happy with the painting. So I think I'm gonna leave it like that. Sí.
¿Qué busco?
Hay una carta. So there's a letter. I gotta.
¿Esa?
No.
Ven, dime qué dice.
No, it's a letter that they sent me from Forum. Maybe it's here. No, it's not here. It's not here. We're looking for the letter. Sorry. Maybe nope. Maybe it's here in this one. Let me look for this here in here.
Pero pido, no sé si tenga datos.
Sorry. No. Okay, so no, this is not it. So so this is the letter. So hopefully you guys can see it. Can you see the letter?
Inclínalo un poquito.
A little bit?
Sí.
So I'm gonna read it, okay, because I kept it. So this was 2006. 2006. It was really nice, and I kept it because it's a rejection letter, but I kept it because I thought it was really nice. And they don't send you letters anymore. You know, you never know. You know how you know if you've been rejected by a gallery? You never hear from them. That is the way nowadays that you know that you were rejected. But Forum Gallery was super out of my reach. This was 2006, so this is, 15 years ago. And I sent my work to that gallery, and I was younger, obviously, so you could argue that I was even way too young or pretentious to try to be in that gallery. But look what they wrote. This is actually like, they send it to me, and they signed it. It's actually signed, pen in it, with a pen. So they say, December 21st, 2006, Dear Mr. Uribe, I wish to thank you for the presentation you mailed us with respect to your artwork. After careful review and consultation with my colleagues at Forum Gallery, New York, I do not feel we're in the position to market your work. We are deeply involved with our many and present commitments to the 40-some artists whose work we do represent, as well as with our historic and secondary market material. For this reason, I'm taking the liberty of returning, for God's sake, nowadays they don't return anything. I'm taking the liberty of returning to you the enclosed material with much gratitude for thinking of Forum Gallery. And sincerely, Marvela Muro, Associate Forum Gallery. It's a super nice letter. Like, I remember getting this and feeling, this is really nice. Like, I don't mind being rejected. Like, this was super, super nice. And I don't know. You know, I feel that galleries are not like that anymore. Like, you know, if you go to a big gallery, I can't imagine me sending anything to David Zwirner and getting a letter like that back. You know, because I would never get into David Zwirner. So, you know, I have the same possibility of getting into David Zwirner today as I had back in 2006 getting into Forum Gallery at that moment. So, I don't know, I think galleries can be super nice. I think they were different. For sure they were different. And I miss that these sort of things don't really happen anymore. Like letters directed to you, you know, they're actually signed. And you feel that the person really did give me a chance. You know, that the answer was going to be no. I deep down, I could have told you that the answer was always going to be no. But at least I thought, wow, they really did look at my work and they really did consider my work. And I think that that's awesome. And sadly, I can say that that doesn't happen that much nowadays, which is very, very sad, which is a very, very sad thing, but it's also something that we should accept. So galleries have changed, and you know, that's just the way it is. They're far more impersonable now, and impersonal now. And you know, that's just the way it is. You're going to be part of sometimes over 100 artists that they rep, and that's not cool anymore. I mean, they do give a ton of people a chance, but that also means that they forget, you know, about the people that they're representing. And a gallery should always feel like your home. You know, that these are the people that really know you. If the only reason you're getting into a gallery is just to get into a gallery, I mean, I really do think that there's so many galleries in this world that if you want to be part of a gallery, you can always be part of a gallery. That's not tough. But I always think that the best place that you can be is one where they support you, they care about you, and they let you do whatever the hell you want. And you can do your paintings, and then they work their asses off to try and sell them. So that to me is a good relationship. But if you can't find that, then start on your own, and you know, that's totally fine also. I mean, there's nothing, absolutely nothing wrong about that. So I think we're gonna finish it here. We're gonna end it here because, again, it's not, I don't know. I was gonna say it's not the painting that I envisioned painting, but I have no clue what I thought I was gonna paint. I have no idea what I wanted to do with this particular painting. So I think that the concern I had initially, which was about that green, that viridian, kind of making sense with that red, I think it works sort of well. I mean, it ended up being kind of like a mid-tone or like a dark shadow equivalent for, you know, that color ended up being the equivalent of those lighting conditions. But not all of them, so I centered that color like around here, and that's about it. Aside from that, I don't know. I was curious to see if it would work. So yeah, so you know, Rauch was the excuse, and I just had a ball with it. I just had a blast with it. So yeah, it's nice. I hadn't used Viridian for such a long time, so it was a nice reintroduction of that color. And I was thinking that this was going to be a little too yellow-orange, the cat yellow, because I'm far more used to this yellow. You can see it right here. If you compare them, like this is a lot lighter and more of a yellow-green. But it worked well. I think that all we needed was that kind of nice, rich, massive color. I love how it just filters through here, that this isn't like this clean edge. I mean, the whole painting has such sharp edges that I didn't want that to be cut out either. As always, because I get too excited, I'm always concerned when my painting just flies off the edge and it just, you know, it's cropped up top, because I think that that's not good composition. And Neo Rauch has really cool hair, so I could have done something super cool with his hair, but I didn't. So You know, I knew I wanted that big, I even wanted like a bigger massive yellow, so I actually ended up making it smaller. But I think that's kind of nice. It was a nice effort today, so I'm happy with it. So we're gonna leave it at that. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Remember, same time, 2:30 Eastern, 1:30 for us here in Bogota. Thank you guys for hanging out. Love you guys. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.